Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are back once again to bring you a TLE reactions video, this time for Backlash that took place on May 9th in Tampa Bay, Florida. Per usual, we'll go through every single match that took place at this PLE, let you know what our thoughts are on each and every one, and then, of course, hit you with our overall feeling towards the show and give that a grade as a whole. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the opening contest, which had Braun Breaker with Paul Heyman going up against Seth Rollins. JP, what did you make of the opening contest of Backlash?
Honestly, a pretty good opening contest here. We've got Bron Breakker and Seth with a lot of history between the two men, going back to obviously, both being in the Vision, and the stems basically to near enough a year ago to the day almost, when they first started up in the group. So there's a lot that goes into this one, and I think, we would have liked to see this at WrestleMania, but obviously with injuries and things like that, obviously, you can only get what you can go with. But we got it here at Backlash, and to be fair, they put on a pretty good match that was quite hard hitting, explosive in parts. I think Bron Breakker especially sort of like brings that aspect into it. Mix that with Seth's technical display of offense, and you got a nice little blend of styles here. To be fair, and I think they put on a good back and forth match. Starts off a little slow, gets into its rhythm. The longer it goes, I personally feel like the better it got. Which was quite nice because it did have a bit of time to it as well. We saw WrestleMania with the matches not so much having a lot of time to work with. This one, didn't really hit that sort of stride at all. This one was a lot more sort of like, invested in the time elements. That was great to see. But yeah, in terms of how this one played out, yeah, I mean, I quite liked it. You had, like I said, the mix of styles, and they got to a stage in the contest where even we saw, Paul Heyman sort of getting a bit stressed out. He's not normally one to actually interfere in matches. He stands there normally, offering some advice and wisdom, when his client, goes to the outside and needs a little bit of a conversation, a little bit of a cool down. But he actually gets into the action, kind of. He gets onto the apron. He's literally distracts Seth Rollins. So that's quite, interesting from Paul Heyman there. Once Seth has continued to sort of like roll with the flow, goes and grabs a steel chair. We then see Austin Theory and Logan Paul, so Vision members as well, coming on down to help out Bron. And they get dealt with via Seth and the steel chair. That provides enough of a distraction for when Seth gets back into the ring. Bron Breakker is recovered by this point, and he hits a spear on Seth, which Seth kicks out of. A little bit towards the late stage of the matchup here now, we do see Seth jumping off of the second rope at the very end of the contest after just hitting a pedigree. He then bounces off those ropes, but goes for a spear. It does Bron Breakker, just catching him in midair. And then we see Bron Breakker just running the ropes straight afterwards, hits another spear. That'll be his third of the contest, and that would be the victory here for Bron Breakker over Seth Rollins. I wouldn't say like I'm overly shocked by the result. I think I would have preferred Seth to have won because of what he's gone through recently. I feel like he needed something to sort of like cement himself in this whole story. But like you said in the predictions, he is the kind of guy that can take a loss and it doesn't really matter too much. So he probably will bounce back from this one and will go at some point later on with him maybe going over on Bron. I would imagine. I can't see this being the last of the matches between these two. There's a lot of stuff going on, so yeah, I can't see Seth just calling it quits here and just going separate ways. So yeah, I mean, I don't mind the result. I think it's fine, absolutely. But yeah, we saw the action spill to ringside. Quite heavy hitting, multiple spears for Seth away. He showed a lot of heart and resiliency, and just made all for a very solid match in my opinion. I gave it 8.5 out of 10. Thoroughly enjoyed the opener here. Nick, what did you make of it though? Seth and Bron, how did it go for you? Did you like the opening matchup? Like the pace, the power, the sort of like link between the two men? What did you make of it all?
Yeah, I feel like both of us were really looking forward to this match, and I do feel like it did live up to it. Interestingly enough, they referred to the age of Rollins kind of coming into play. I don't know if I'm ready for that discussion. I know he's openly said too he doesn't know how much time he has left in him and that sort of thing. For WWE to openly hit on that from the commentary perspective, I thought was interesting. It definitely was more of a slow burn, especially during the beginning portions of this match. And I personally would have preferred just a clean win, even if it was just Heyman making slight interference. Fine. But I think Braun's just good enough to where I would have been happier. I know if you've listened to the show, I just prefer clean wins even from the heel. But that aside, the Vision didn't get super involved. Of course, they did get involved enough. I would have preferred to just lose clean to Breaker. I think with how much power and time has been invested into Breaker, I don't think that would be the end of the world. And like you alluded to, and we said I've said many times, Rollins doesn't really need wins. He's still just that guy. He's still one of the best to do it. And so it isn't a huge deal for him to just have a loss. But regardless, it wasn't like it took up the whole match. So at least I can be grateful for that. But that one nitpick aside, this is a lot of fun. Yeah, Breaker just brings a certain quality to the ring that is very unique and unmatched pretty much across the board in WWE. He has that special aura to him, and Rollins obviously does as well. So, there wasn't a lot of things they could do to ruin this match, and then clocking in at, I believe, 21 minutes of the longest match of the evening. Yeah, like I said, and you mentioned as well, was obviously supposed to be on the WrestleMania stage. This felt like it was a WrestleMania kind of match. It had a lot of time and told a really nice story. So based on all that, yeah, Braun Breaker gets the win here. I absolutely think that's the right call. Having come back and for as long as he's been gone, really it feels like he hasn't missed a beat. Like he's still just as prominent as he ever was before. So yeah, I thought that this was a great contest to kick off the show and a nice start to Backlash. I'd give this one a 9 out of 10. The second match of the evening has Sami Zayn going up against Trick Williams, who is defending his United States Championship. The build for this one, as we've discussed on many, many occasions, has been different. I think that's absolutely fair to say. But for this one, KP, what do we make of this one? Better than the WrestleMania match. It did get a bit more time, but not a lot. But what did you make of this one?
No, yeah, we'll start exactly with that there. It was better than their WrestleMania meeting. Yeah, I think when it comes to, that matchup itself, didn't have a lot of time. Felt like it went by extremely quickly. Didn't really have a lot of stock into it. This one, yeah, it had a lot more layers to it, which is quite nice. We obviously allowed it to go a bit more of a distance, which allowed them to put on a decent match between the two of them. They went back and forth a lot of the time. And yeah, it just felt a bit bigger and better. I think just generally speaking, you have to go with that comparison because that's literally the most recent one we had. So it's hard to sort of like not bring that up in conversation. But this one, especially here right now, we do see Sami Zayn just, seemingly battling his way through this one. He's got to deal with Trick Williams. He's got to deal with Lil Yachty. He's also got to deal with the crowd, I guess you could say, because they're obviously very much against him. So there was a lot of sort of like factors going against Sami here, and I think like he felt like he was sort of like isolated in that ring. And it did catch up to him in the end because we do see Lil Yachty sort of getting in, sort of like the face of Sami Zayn. We got the candy cane stick that's been sort of like ever present in the build, obviously with the gingerbread man and all that kind of stuff. And Sami does use it at first on Trick Williams in the matchup, so sort of like showing some heel instincts. But then Lil Yachty later on uses it on Sami whilst the referee's distracted by Trick Williams, so sort of like getting one back on him for that. The action does build to ringside towards the very late stage of the contest. We see the steel steps being exposed, which Sami uses to his effectiveness by spiking Trick Williams onto those steps, courtesy of a DDT. And then he goes into the ring to hit a haluva kick on Lil Yachty. A haluva kick on Trick Williams, and that's when Lil Yachty strikes with the stick. We then have not much afterwards to discuss. Sami going for that haluva kick. Trick avoids it, bounces off the ropes, hits a trick shot, and that would be the win here for Trick Williams defending his United States Championship. So, yeah, I mean, I still hold, my sort of original thoughts. I think this would have been much better if they had this be the time where Trick won it, because this felt very obvious. So I would have think that would have, removed maybe the obvious factor from WrestleMania, and then we would have at least just had one match which was, not exactly obvious in this one. So, yeah, I think this would have been a much better moment for that one. But it does, keep that momentum rolling for Trick Williams, which obviously is an important thing. He's very over right now, very good with the fans. So I kind of see both sides of the coin here. But yeah, Sami Zayn effectively done from the situation now. He can move on. Trick can move on, which is ultimately good for everybody involved here because I think the story has sort of like run its course. But we'll see what happens next anyway. But yeah, had a lot of physicality to this one. Just a good flow to it. I thoroughly enjoyed it, to be fair. I give it 7.5 out of 10, which is better than the previous matchups. That's the main takeaway from this one. Nick, how did you rate this, though? Better than the Mania match? And what did you make of it overall?
Yeah, definitely better than the WrestleMania match, which didn't have a huge bar set, but this one was definitely better. I still would have liked a little more time. Just under 13 minutes is obviously better, in across the board, no matches under 10 minutes here, which WrestleMania was, very much had copious amounts of those. So just glad that we had more time here. And yeah, the dynamic still here is weird. Obviously, Trick is the face, which has Lil Yachty helping him. Obviously, Sami Zayn having heel tactics as well with the knee injury and all of that. Sammy's just a great in ring storyteller, and I think he's kind of masking. I think I love Trick, but I will admit his in-ring abilities aren't as good as his character work, at least yet. But I feel like every single match Trick is continuing to improve. Even with his way he was timing the kicks, with having the audience chant to whoop that Trick along with his kicks, like just little stuff like that that I think is massively helping his character from an in-ring perspective, and will soon match his character perspective. But I won't continue on that topic too much longer. I feel like this was a fun match. Like I said, better than the WrestleMania match, and kind of had enough of the possibly maybe trending into the overbooked stuff there at the end. But regardless, was a good match. Sammy obviously carrying the story from an in-ring perspective, and just like you said, hopefully this is the end of this whole weird storyline with the gingerbread man. Hopefully Friday was the official end to that, but I would be surprised if we see it again next week. But for what it was, this is a good ending. Hopefully both guys can just simply move on from here, and like we both said, but in the WrestleMania match, and we'll call it there. Gave this one a 6.5 out of 10 for me. The next match of the evening, and one that was again very very topical. Make of that what you will. Danhausen and a mystery partner, which ends up being a little or Danhausen Jr., if you will, going up against the Miz and Kit Wilson. Yeah, let's get right into this one. KP, thoughts on this one?
Thoughts on this one? That's the big question. This one was crazy. It was entertaining though. I got to admit, right? It's just a crazy sort of section between everybody involved here. First and foremost, you obviously the cloning situation from Danhausen. He gets a little Minihausen from it. That's then revealed to be the tag partner, and we go into a contest which is generally just different, but also quite fun at the same time. Sort of like a luchador-esque vibe from Minihausen as he sort of like goes through his motions on Trick Williams. So, excuse me, on Kit Wilson and The Miz. So just all like seeing that like element coming out was quite cool to begin with. And then like we see Miz and Kit trying to like isolate him from Danhausen, keeping Danhausen at ringside, not getting him into the contest, and trying to keep the action between the three of them. And then yeah, eventually we do see Danhausen coming in, sort of like going through the motions, doing some big time moves, which is quite nice to see. But also, off the back of that one as well, we get to a stage in the matchup where you think things are weird enough as it is, where they get even weirder, because Kit Wilson does actually get Minihausen into the cloning machine, and then we see, a few seconds later, just a load of these Minihausens, probably a good, probably 5 or 6 of them, come out of it. And then they just literally just swarm Kit Wilson, chase him down to the ring, and then they're basically just being menaces for the rest of the matchup, sort of like laughing from the announce table, just generally just being just being quite hilarious, especially towards Kit and Miz. So yeah, there's just a lot of characters around here, and it's just a very comic relief, sort of stress relieving type segment here. It's not meant to be a serious thing, not meant to be a quality matchup. It's just a fun sort of comedic moment, which I think it did pretty well. To be fair, I quite enjoyed it. In the very late stages of the matchup as well, after all the craziness beforehand, we do see Miz going under the ring, and he ends up with a fire extinguisher. He looks to use it on Danhausen and the Minihausens at ringside, but it doesn't work at first. He sort of like, points it directly at his face, and obviously you know what happens when someone points at their face. It just happens to start working, and that's what it did. It would just blow up in Miz's face, and obviously he would be a little bit blindsided by that. Danhausen would get Miz back into the ring as Minihausen hits a crossbody diving to Kit Wilson on the outside. Danhausen then hits a pump kick, and that'll be the victory here for Dan and Minihausen. So yeah, it was a bizarre segment to say the least, but very very funny, very amusing, entertaining for sure. Like I said, not a tremendous matchup or anything, but it wasn't meant to be. It was meant to be a fun segment, and that's what we got from this one. So I quite liked it. I'm going to give it a rating that's based on my enjoyment levels of this one, not match quality. And that for me sits at a 7.5, sort of like in the middle, sort of like enjoying it, because I also enjoy the in-ring talent as well. So I think it sort of matched itself out quite nicely there. And I was just smiling the whole way through this. It was just a fun match. So yeah, I like it. Something a little different, a little bit of a relief. Nick, what did you make of this one in terms of your overall enjoyment? Did you like it as much as I did? Did you appreciate the comedy relief factor? And just generally, how do you feel this is all going? Does it hit for you?
Yeah, I realize Danhausen is a difficult character to kind of work around, and I think that's what they're trying to do. I will say what didn't work in the favor of this whole reveal thing was, building it up, having the IWC speculate on who it could be, all of the, fan theory. Because I feel like when you do that sort of thing, the unknown, you kind of, and again, we talked about this on the predictions video. Let's keep our expectations low because we don't want to be disappointed. Um, Obviously, I'm assuming we both did that. I know I definitely did. But even still, with that low expectation, it was a bit disappointing to see that this was the reveal. Even if it was better than it had any right to be, as you said, it was funny. It was goofy, and it was a nice break in between, the action. But all of that said, I think WWE, especially with the box, like you're setting yourself up to be disappointed. And I feel like maybe that's on us for continuing to think they're going to do something super special. But regardless, I don't think either of us had a Minihausen on our list of tag partners. So make of that what you will. Yeah, it was entertaining enough. I, for one, would prefer Danhausen kind of not have to deal with the Minnehausens anymore. No disrespect to them. It's fun enough, but just not my cup of tea. And I think it's eventually it's going to get tiresome from us. So based on what we got here, yeah, like I said, it's better than it needed to be. It should have been absurd, ridiculous, crazy, silly. Just take our serious hats off for a minute, wrestling curious hats off for a minute, and just enjoy the silliness that Danhausen can provide. 99% of the time, Danhausen gives us what we want, so and it's entertaining enough. Obviously, everyone in this match is quality, so it makes it work somehow. Definitely my least favorite match of the night, obviously, but so I'll give this one a 6.5 out of 10. That kind of feels generous to me, even because I just kind of feel like I don't know why. Like I said, I was expecting something a little more serious, but I don't know why. Because again, it's Danhausen, so yeah, good enough for what it was, I suppose. Better than what it should have been, and we'll quickly move on from here. The next match of the evening is a highly anticipated one. Asuka, Kairi Sane, no, or excuse me, wishful thinking. Asuka and Iyo Sky, no Kairi Sane. KP, what did you make of this one?
Yeah, it's safe to say that Asuka and Iyo have had a lot going on. This is something that we've been wanting for a while, and eventually we do get to the position, of these two, going at it. Obviously, we would have loved to have had Kairi Sane be a part of this one. I think, just naturally that was a big part of the story. So it's unfortunate that we didn't get that, extra element. But in terms of what we did have between the two ladies, you expect a good match, and that's what we got. So no complaints in terms of the match quality content here, because it was absolutely solid between both ladies, who have just so much history. Like I said, a really good display of back and forth wrestling. The scale was just flipping constantly throughout the match, and a lot of counters as well, showing how well each woman knows the other one. Just sort of like having an answer to everything they can sort of like do, and there were some really lovely transitions, especially from like grappling techniques and stuff. Just like just being one step ahead of their opponent and things with counters and stuff. Yeah, it was really ever present, the sort of like chemistry these two have in the ring, and how much they've worked together in the past for them to have a match like this on a PLE. Yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it for sure. We even see probably one of my favorite spots in the contest was both ladies being on the announce table, and Asuka it goes for her poison mist, sort of like having a bit of a groggy Iyo at the time, but not groggy enough because Iyo grabs Wade Barrett's notebook, whatever, and she actually just holds it up to block out the poison mist. It's a really unique spot. I quite liked that, to be fair. So they did that quite well, quite different, something unique, which was a plus for me. And then, yeah, we do sort of see, that sort of general style from both ladies. They've got so much technical ability here, but also that bit of a power game which comes into the later stages too. which is also great because in the late stages, after that poison mist and stuff, Asuka does get brought down by Iyo. Iyo takes advantage, and we see sort of a back and forth in the ring, a little one after obviously their big contest so far. Iyo does take a German suplex from Asuka before she then delivers one of her own to the Empress straight afterwards. She then follows up with a bullet train attack in the corner and then goes for over the moonsault in order to get the victory here in this pretty, solid contest. I think a massive talking point here, though, is after the match ends, we do see Iyo Sky celebrating in the ring, and Asuka does get back up to her feet. And obviously, because of the hatred between these two ladies, in terms mainly from Asuka towards Iyo, Asuka gets up to her feet and she sort of just like looks at Iyo as if to say, fair play, you got me, essentially, admitting, defeat, obviously accepting it, whatever. And then she literally just opens her arms up for Iyo and they have an embrace in the ring. Okay, that's great, that's cool. We then see a moment afterwards, though, Asuka literally sort of like trying to not cry on the spot, getting quite emotional. And she starts waving to the fans. Iyo bows to her as well, and it just feels very send-off, which is slightly concerning to me. Maybe we're looking too deeply into this one. She has had some social media activity recently, which suggests maybe, she is looking to do something else, to call it a day. I don't know. But it does give me that general vibe. And if this one was meant to be at WrestleMania, then that probably would have been, probably the same idea as what we got here. So, yeah, I did get WrestleMania-esque matches from this one. So maybe that ending segment was meant to be sort of like Asuka, just coming to terms with the end of her tenure. I don't know, but I really hope not. I love Asuka, I know you do massively as well, Nick. So if this is the end, then I got to put my hands up and say, absolutely one of the very best ever to do it. Just a tremendous athlete in every sense of the word, and one of my favorite women to ever, be in the business. So yeah, kudos to Asuka, just one of the greats. But a great match to end on as well, 1-on-1 with Iyo Sky. Like I say, I thoroughly enjoyed this one. It was exceptional. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. Absolutely adored this match. It was brilliant. Nick, what do you make of it all? From the start of the match going through towards the end, the little bits in the middle, and then obviously the very post-match stuff with Asuka and Iyo consoling each other. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, a lot to unpack here, but I do feel like you covered a lot of what I had listed to say. That we went Kyrie chance at the beginning and why I jumped the gun in my initial introduction to the match. Clearly, hopefully WWE noticed that at least. Maybe, I guess the return's still not out of the question. But in terms of what we got in the actual match, obviously we both had high expectations. Felt like this could be match of the night, and in my opinion, absolutely was. Um, to no surprise. Yeah, this is just a ton of fun. These both women clearly know each other well, work with each other well, and honestly, it was a matter of how good this match could be. I'm just going to give it a 10 because especially given the post-match happenings, which I'm not quite ready to unpack that yet. Um, One of my favorite, if not my favorite, women's wrestler of all time. Very sudden to see all of a sudden her, wave send off if it does in fact end up being that. Yeah, I'm not quite ready for the ad yet. I know she's mentioned in the past that she has lots of endeavors that she's obviously very good at outside of the ring as well. She's obviously uh, getting up there in age, but I feel like this match is a testament to anything. Like she clearly has tons of time left in, and how does that mean that the only time she can retire is when she's physically unable to do so? Like we've seen with the likes of John Cena, like we won't see them retire before it's too late. And so I can respect that. I'm not disrespecting the decision if that is what it is. It just feels like it was very sudden, very out of nowhere. Even if there were hints on social media and even through her reactions over the last month or so, you could kind of see her that a lot of that I think was kind of assumed to be, emotion that was attached to Kyrie. So make of that what you will. I'm hopeful this is not the end because I feel like personally, one of the best, if not the best, to ever do it from the women's side. I feel like should have a very big grand send off, not just a post match segment. So, I can completely understand the fact that maybe I am being a bit biased and maybe it is a bit personal to me, but if this was the last match and the last time that we see her in ring. What a send off match it was. I'm just hopeful and that WWE can give her a lot more than she obviously deserves, and still somehow massively underrated. So make of that what you will. I'll get off my soapbox, but this is a fantastic match. Obviously, I this could have gone another 10 minutes, and I think it would have even continued to be great. So make of that what you will. Obviously, 10 out of 10 for me. I already did that one. I just wanted to spill that out there as quickly as possible. Somehow you have a match that you really have high expectations for, and it lives up to. So that's the both of these women here definitely showed out here. The next segment of the evening, John Cena's big announcement, which I think a lot of us kind of just assumed was going to be a club announcement. It was a little bit more. KP, want to hit on the big points here and your reactions there, and we'll yeah, kind of get some back and forth on this one.
Yeah, I think you already hit on it. A lot of us were expecting that whole club WWE business again. Naturally, I think that was just what everyone was going in with, that like disappointing factor there. But we got something a little different actually. We got something actually that was worth an announcement, that was worth a time. And it was basically John Cena announcing what he's going to be calling the John Cena Classic. And this basically is just taking what was Saturnight's main event, his last show back in December of last year, where it was NXT versus main roster. And it was essentially what he describes as, today versus tomorrow. This is going to be a regular event that's going to be held throughout WWE yearly programming. Not entirely sure how often it's going to be, but it will be taking place on a regular basis. And essentially, there's going to be a brand new championship that comes in line with this one as well. That championship is awarded to one of the superstars that will be competing on the John Cena Classic show that will be taking place. It'll be awarded to somebody that's voted for by fans during the event itself, irrelevant of whether they win or lose their match on the show. So basically, it's sort of like a popularity aspect. Let's go back to Saturday's main event. We had Soruka beating Bayley. Bayley could still win that championship on the night. If the fans are, wanting to see her win it enough that she wins the votes. So, sort of situation like that. It's quite interesting for sure. Maybe brings a little bit of Cyber Sunday-esque vibes to the modern day. Whether it's gonna be like an X vote or a poll or something on there, I don't know. They didn't announce that. Whether it's WWE.com, I guess I have to wait for more details about that. But yeah, in terms of how superstars will get onto this show as well, they will actually compete in qualifying matches in order to earn their opportunity on the card. So again, very similar to the John Cena last time is now tournament that we had. Sort of like allowing Gunter in that case to get on the show to face John Cena. But obviously this time it's just people competing to get onto the show itself. So yeah, there's a lot going into this one, so I quite like the new angle. A regular event sounds cool. We get to see NXT versus main roster, so that sort of allows more eyes on the NXT talents every now and then, which is great as well because they absolutely deserve that. So yeah, it just gives opportunities for some brand new contests as well. So what's there not to love, basically? And a brand new title. Okay, maybe it won't be the absolute most prestigious one there, but it's going to be something a little different and unique and new. So I'm quite interested for that. So yeah, count me in. I'm up for that. Nick, what do you make of this though? It's quite a unique announcement. Different than what we would have expected going into it, like you said with Club WWE. But this one's good. It's better than that. So what did you make of it?
I am still intrigued in the Club WWE, for whatever that's worth. But in terms of what we got here, yeah, I think it's mostly positive. It's something new, something different. As you know, I also oftentimes clamored for something similar to the Cyber Sunday. So I think it with today's kind of the social media presence being an all-time high, I feel like that is an opportunity that has always kind of been just kind of sitting there waiting for them to take. So, you mentioned the voting, method not quite yet known. So I think that is a potential for them to do something with. In terms of, yeah, I don't probably not the most prestigious title, but it's something different. I feel like that's kind of the biggest positive for me. I think there are a lot of questions surrounding the whole thing, at least for me still, in terms of how that will work. So I will hold off my excitement a bit, but just based on what we got, I feel like it is something positive, something new, something different. WWE kind of not just saying they're resting on the laurels. So we'll take that as a win, absolutely. Yeah, I'm interested, and I'm curious to see what we get. Um, Definitely excited to see what comes. with that, let's get into the main event of Backlash, which has Jacob Fatu going up against Roman Reigns, who is defending his World Heavyweight Championship. This one felt like it was going to be personal, felt like it was going to be big. KP, in your opinion, does it live up to that? And what did you make of it?
Personally, for me, I was a bit underwhelmed by this whole thing. I wasn't like massively invested in the contest anyway, which is weird because, you know, back-to-back events now, WrestleMania and Backlash, the main event has been something that I've just been not interested in whatsoever. But like in terms of just trying to enjoy the contest for what it was, I just felt it was really standard. You know, if you put these two in a ring, and you sort of like allow them to go up against each other and, you know, go for it, I feel like we're probably going to get this 9 times out of 10. This is basically just a foundation match between both guys, and they didn't particularly do anything special for me. Sure, it was hard hitting, it was physical, but that's literally what you expect from both men. It was aggressive, and that's what Jacob Fatu is literally built on as his character. Roman Reigns obviously has been down that path, you know, throughout his career too, so, you know, understandably at that point as well. And I think for me, the biggest glaring issue in this one is the complete destruction of the Tongan Death Grip in the build. So that was built up to be this particular move that, you know, was essentially looked down upon, frowned upon, seen as, you know, just not to be used against family, and was essentially sort of like a deathly move. Like it was meant to be like a last resort, you know, I'm gonna take you out by any means necessary style maneuver. And Jacob Fatu uses it 3 times in the contest, once extremely early in the first few minutes at ringside, and then again sort of like in the mid stages, and then right at the very end as well. So like I feel that they sort of, I don't know, just went back on the whole prestige of the move, and they basically just like got it to a status of being unprotected already, just from, you know, using it so frequently in the contest and Roman Reigns getting out of it every time. I would have preferred what they did at the very end, and I'll talk about that in a moment, as the only instance of it being used during the match. We saw a bit of it afterwards as well, which again I'll discuss in a second, but for me that was just such a glaring issue. It didn't make any sense whatsoever based on the build, and it's just a massive loophole in this whole story. But yeah, in terms of the contest, it's, yeah, like I say, it's just standard. You know, what you get from these two is what you got here. And I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm not saying it's special. As a main event, this one was okay. It was fine. In terms of our finish here, so Jacob Fatu locks in the Tonga Death Grip, like I mentioned, this time for the 3rd time in the contest. Roman Reigns panics, sort of grabbing the referee, trying to escape the hold, before he then goes towards the corner and accidentally rips off the turnbuckle. Roman does drop Fatu onto the exposed buckle, escaping from the Tongan Death Grip moments before as well. And he then hits his 3rd spear of the matchup in order to get the victory here. I say like the number of finishes here, like they both hit their big moves 3 times. Even Jacob Fatu hit a pop-up moonsault, and Roman Reigns kicks out of that one. There were lots of kickouts and stuff, but like there wasn't a point in that sort of match up until then that I thought that any of them were going to get the job done. So it didn't really come as a surprise when they did kick out of them. Again, unprotected finishes, just sort of, you know, just, I don't know. I guess when you see these guys in the ring, not so much Jacob Fatu, but Roman Reigns especially, when he hits a spear, 9 times out of 10, you don't expect it to win the match, which is crazy to me. But post-match, we do see Jacob Fatu, you know, going absolutely sort of feral, I guess you could say, locking in the Tongan Death Grip once again for the 4th time. Before then, he attacks the referee. Officials try and stop Fatu, but they get attacked by him. He sort of like deals with them 1v1. Jacob Fatu then locks in the Tongan Death Grip again on Roman Reigns to inflict further punishment. And literally, you can see in the bottom right corner there, they're all trying to get him off of him, and they can't. And eventually, he does just let him go. He poses with the World Heavyweight Championship at the very end, and that is the final sort of like images of Backlash for this year. But yeah, like I said, it's just not me. Like I don't particularly think this one did anything for myself personally. Sure, it builds Jacob Fatu up a little bit more, makes him look a lot more dangerous now, which is quite crazy because he already was so, in fact. But yeah, I think if you take away the match content and just have that post match stuff, it's pretty you know, good. Like I like the post match bit, that was fine, but yeah, I don't know. The match itself was just really devaluing of everything that sort of went into that build, and didn't really, you know, appreciate it whatsoever. Maybe I'm being overcritical, maybe I'm not, I don't know. I'm looking forward to hearing what you make of that one and reacting to sort of like what I've discussed so far. But yeah, I don't know. It was fine. It was okay. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Like I say, I loved the ending bit with Fatu looking extremely strong despite losing, because I'm assuming we're going to run this back again at some point. But we'll have to wait and see when that takes place. All right, Nick, what did you make of this one? Main event of Backlash. How did it feel for you? Do you agree with anything I said? And yeah, let's hear your overall thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your point. I didn't look that deep into it. Maybe that's a fault on me. Maybe I'm not sure, but I love this match, and I'll tell you why. Because I feel like um, Jacob felt like he got the better of Roman at every single possible turn. Jacob, even like you said, what has in the build to this was already looked has already been built to look like an absolute monster, an absolute beast, and somehow he continued that to do even more so when it came time for the match. So no, the match wasn't like 5 stars, but it felt like it was its sole purpose was to build Jacob Fatu even more so than he had already done. And so I felt like it was very much accomplished here. Made Roman look very very normal like, which is not easy to do. And so maybe I'm maybe I'm drinking too much of the hype Gatorade here for Jacob Fatu, but I feel like this whole match did a fantastic job of building him up to it. Like I said, I completely understand your point towards the Tonga Greth did there. Greth Death Grip there, excuse me. But yeah, I didn't feel like it took away from the match. And I absolutely love how they built Jacob Fatu up here. Short of taking his title, I feel like Jacob did everything right. And obviously with the post match stuff showing that he's still, very much fighting those demons and maybe not quite so much winning that fight. Roman getting cheered even though he, cheated to win. Shows how over he is, and Jacob still pretty cheered as well. But it kind of felt like that was a bit of a heel turn there. Um, or at least, this is so personal that he at least had a moment of heel behavior. So make of that what you will. I personally think he should still be a face, but obviously he can do both. I think that's been made clear already. But yeah, I think I enjoyed the match clearly more than you did. But I just, I don't know how much of that is just based on what the work that they put into Jacob Fatu and the star that they made him into. And props to Roman too. It just seems like when he's in the main event, he just makes it, have that big fight feel. And for him to kind of essentially, he didn't completely do the job because he still has a title, but it felt like in every other possible way he could. He made Jacob look like a star, and for me, this one gets a 9 out of 10. This one was a ton of fun, and I'm excited what Jacob Fatu's future holds. I think eventually he's going to get the title, as you said. I don't think this is the end. I honestly think I do believe that Jay was going to take that title, even if we didn't know about the potential part-time status of Roman. I think Jacob's taking that title. It's just a matter of when. So with that, KP, I know going into this PLE, your expectations were I don't want to say vastly less, but they were definitely much lesser than mine. Who I felt like the card on paper looked pretty good. You're probably the smarter individual for having lower expectations for what is essentially a B level PLE. But curious to get your thoughts on this, highlights and overalls, and we'll get this one wrapped up.
Quite pleased generally with how I approached this one because I did have that negative sort of vibe going into it, and I'm glad I did because it was a much better show than I thought it was going to be off the back of that. I think the matches were given a lot more time than WrestleMania, which obviously is great to see. B, they just felt more rewarding for them for the vast majority. Just generally was enjoying them a lot more because of probably the length of time. And C, just like because of how much I didn't really look to be enjoying it off the look of the card when they took place, I was just surprised in a lot of ways. So yeah, whether that's your comedic value of a the Danhausen tag match, or if it's the absolutely incredible one-on-one contest between Iyo Sky and Asuka, or even maybe the great opening that was Seth Rollins and Bron Breakker, I'd say they're probably all my highlights of the show, with especially Asuka and Iyo being the number one on my list. So yeah, I absolutely loved and adored that contest, and I really don't want Asuka to go, but if she's going to, then fair respect to her because she's an absolute legend of the industry. But in terms of my overall rating for Backlash, I did give an 8 out of 10. That's an average of all my matches put together. Slightly rounded down, but it's pretty damn close to an 8 regardless. Yeah, just thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a good Backlash, solid. Saying the matches were good. There wasn't a bad match between them. My worst one on here is well, there are 3 that got a 7.5. So I don't think that's bad at all. So yeah, all for different reasons and different bits here and there, but solid show. Surprisingly solid for sure. So I'm gonna do this again. I'm gonna go to the next one with low expectations, and I'll be looking forward to seeing if I can once again be surprised by the by the matches. Nick, what did you make though? Overall backlash, your overall thoughts, expectations versus reality. What did you make of it all?
We both know, as should all the listeners, it is safe. Definitely the best approach to go in with, thinking, this won't be a good show, and then just pleasantly surprised. I think we do typically take that approach. I just couldn't help but be excited about the card because it just felt like it had lots of potential for things to go right. And I would agree with your assessment. I feel like it did. Like everything really went right. There wasn't really anything that went wrong. I don't particularly care for the Danhausen stuff, but can respect just the fun nature of it. But definitely my least favorite of the evening at the Trick Williams and Sami Zayn wasn't groundbreaking by any means, but it was better than the Mania match. So make of that what you will. But the other three matches I felt like really were plus, and your lowest rating I think you said was 7.5. So that's tremendous for VLE in my opinion. The Bron Breaker, Jacob Fatu, obviously both of those guys built up to look like $1 million here, so we have to be excited for what their future holds. And then obviously the elephant in the room, Iyo and Asuka, of course, tear down the house as we knew they would. Match of the night, especially the match of the year contender. Maybe more on that later. But yeah, generally speaking, kind of gave us a nice little palate cleanser from that of WrestleMania. Just felt like an overall better show. And then, of course, the big announcement from John Cena. So I honestly think this is a tremendous success, especially if this is dubbed a B-level PLE. I really have no complaints. And so for me, this one gets an 8.25. That's a pretty high rating for a PLE. So I would call this all an entire and huge success for Backlash. So with that, enough from us over here at the push. What did you make of Backlash? We'd love to hear from you in the comments below. As always, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you like what we're putting out here. We, of course, will be back with our weekly scheduling of Raw, SmackDown, and NXT recaps. And we have another project in the works that we have officially decided on, just a matter of timing. So excited for that. Looking forward to bringing that to you soon. But for now, this has been the latest episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We'll see you soon. Take care.